What's going on at the internet? Selfish here with Retrospect. Today we're going to take a look at 2025's most interesting retro handheld so far, the Anbernic RG Slide. And this thing, I got a lot to say about it. Let's take a look. Alright, for our first point of business, there will be chapters on this video down below. So if you want to skip ahead anywhere or there's something specific you're looking for, you can find that in the chapter section. I've been trying to put them in more videos lately, but this video definitely is going to need them. So I will have them there so you can skip around at your heart's desire. For the sake of full transparency, this Anbernic RG Slide was sent to me by our friends over at MechDIY for a fair and honest review. No money exchanged hands, and all opinions are obviously of my own. If you want to get yourself an RG Slide when this is all said and done, and you want to save yourself some money, hit the link down in my thingamabob over to MechDIY. Use code RETROSPECT16. That'll save you 16%. Also, you can just go and check out the other handhelds they have and use my code on those handhelds as well. Now let's get after it. All right, we are going to unbox the Anbernic RG Slide. So this is a fun little handheld, and it comes in a slidey box, which just makes it that much more fun. This is probably one of the nicest boxes Anbernic's ever used. Mine seems to be stuck. There we go. MechDIY put their little sticker there. That's a perfect spot for it, guys. Keep doing that. And here we go. Not a whole lot on the box here. This is going to tell me that we have the black colorway. I'm going to open her up. Maybe. And here we do have a 256 gig card from MechDIY. Thank you, guys. That'll be full of ROMs. We have this nice little, looks like a letter from Anbernic. Inside of here we do have a screen cover. It's a nice acrylic one. I believe there's screen wipes in here too. Yep, screen wipes. And of course we cannot forget the origami accordion. This one, it's broken. Just kidding, it works just fine, I'm sure. I'm sure it sounds beautiful. And this is just going to have our typical Anbernic stuff, but it is nice to have a little reference because I'll show you in a little bit. I thought that there wasn't a return or function key on this when I was looking at images of it online. I think I referenced it in one of my posts once even, like that I thought they were missing, but they are not. And we will check on those here in just a second. Next here we do have, this will be our charging cable inside of here, but there's also a little present that Anbernic sent to everybody. And they are these little joystick caps. Because the joysticks are so small, they send some caps. Now, I haven't been able to find any custom caps that fit. These are the smallest little joysticks I've ever dealt with, and definitely the smallest caps. But then, of course, we do have our A to C cable in here, too. So very nice. We'll set all this stuff off to the side, and we'll grab the handheld. And here we have it, the RG Slide from Anbernic. This is beautiful in black. The bezels just disappear on here, too, so I am really digging this in the black color. Interestingly, this one didn't have the clear plastic thing in it. I wonder if that's because the memory card wouldn't fit in there with that extra plastic guard that they had in there. But I can throw a picture of it up on the screen here for you, but obviously it wasn't needed. There's all this foam and everything in there. Oh, it is right there. Look at that. Never mind. I'm totally kidding. Hey, look, there's this little plastic guard that was sitting over this that was behind here. So disregard my last. All right, so we're going to go through the I/O real quick, and then we will get on to doing some testing and things like that and figure out all the ins and outs of the RG Slide in this new form factor. Oh yes, there she is. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to go through the I/O, do some spec stuff, and then I'm going to kind of go through the experience with this, the goods, the bads, you know, the things that we normally do, and try to help you decide if this is the right handheld for you. With as exposed as this screen is going to be in your pocket or wherever you have it, it's really nice that Anbernic did include a nice screen cover. It's one of the acrylic ones. That way you aren't as worried about breaking this bad boy, because she's going to be out in the elements a bit. Now the trick here is just line her up. There's a little ledge around the outside, so you're really just kind of going into indentation. Once you get her lined up, drop her down, and then just touch the screen and let her mold out. As soon as it gets out to all the edges, you can kind of push out any extra bubbles you might have. This should work most of the bubbles out anyways, and then you will be all done with that part. And that's how you do that. I'll just throw a memory card in here real quick. No big deal. This is this 256 card that I got sent by MechDIY. It is a SanDisk card, and it is really good. I'm really enjoying the games that are on here. Really different than any of my other cards that I've got. So here's the secret to doing joystick caps. What you do is you turn them inside out, kind of like this. And then you put them over it and kind of slide it, and boom, there you go. Easy peasy. In case you didn't know how to do that, that is a little gift for you. I did also put in this 256 gig SanDisk card that I got from MechDIY, and so we're going to use that to do a little bit of testing here and we're going to go over my experience with this handheld thus far. It's kind of cool they actually made these caps also not get hooked when sliding right over the top of this screen here, I guess underneath the screen. But yeah, so you'd think that just a little bit of extra would have been enough, but there is enough tolerance in there for those. So that's pretty cool. All right, now that we got that screen cover on there, let's go through the I/O here real quick. We'll start on the top like we always do. We do have our left and right triggers and bumpers, and they are definitely on micro switches. On the back here, we do have our ventilations. So we do have an exhaust and intake fan. That's what all these holes are all about. And that's going to be for our active cooling. On the right-hand side over here, we do have our volume up and down, as well as our power button. And then on our left-hand side over here, we do have the micro SD hole. And that's where all your games is going to go. So if you got games, you want to put them in there. On the bottom down here, we do have a Type-C hole. This is going to also work as a display out. So if you want to play this on your TV and consoleize this handheld, you are able to do that. You just have to use that Type-C hole right there. And then we do a 3.5 hole right here, and that's going to be for all your tunesies right through the 3.5 hole. On the front here, before we open it up, we do have this beautiful display, which we will talk a little bit more about here in just a second. And then we do have our back and home buttons. I actually thought that this was missing the home and back buttons prior to getting a unit to review. And as you can see now, those buttons are here. They just are on the screen instead of on the body of the device itself, and that is just a fine place for it as any. Now, as we open her up here, I do have the little stick caps on here, but we do have our start and select buttons right here in the middle, followed up by our face buttons. And these actually do have full travel, which I was not expecting, to be honest with you, and I don't know if I can get this on camera. I was not expecting these to have the travel that they do, so it's really nice to see that that's there. We do have our sticks. They are not Hall effect sticks, but they do have decent motion for how tiny that they are, and they do have L3 and R3. And one thing that's interesting is you can actually see the internals, if I can get it on camera, on the inside of these sticks, which is kind of neat. And then on top of that, we do have our D-pad, and this is a typical Anbernic D-pad, and it works just like every other Anbernic D-pad. It is full-sized as well, so it's nice to see, again, they didn't RG28XX this thing, which is fantastic, because I was a little worried that we were going to have tiny little buttons and things like that, but we're not really seeing that here. So that is a good thing. So let's get into some of the other things we can learn about this handheld. Let's do some weight comparisons real quick, because she's a chonky boy. And it comes in here right around 392. So we'll go with another, what I would consider Pocketable device, which is the Retroid Pocket V2 Mini, the Mini V2, which I think is a Pocketable device. I use it a lot. Looks like that's coming in at 234, so significantly heavier than the Pocket V2. Similar in size. Kind of hard to argue that one, I guess. I don't know. It's a little bit wider, but other than that, a little bit slightly thicker, I guess, but not much. Let's wait up against the RG406H, which is essentially what I would be replacing. So significantly heavier than that as well. You can see my daughter got into this. It is sticky as all hell. Next, we'll take a look at the 406V. Still coming in about 100 grams lighter. Honestly, this does its weight okay. I mean, it is heavy, but yeah, this is pretty light, I guess. Okay, let's try a couple other ones that I think are kind of chunky. So we have the DMG, the ANEO DMG. Let's see what this thing does for it. Okay, so that's still 110 grams lighter. How about a device I do carry in my pocket quite a bit that is kind of a chunky boy? And that is going to be the Odin 2 Mini. And that is still coming in heavier than the Odin 2 Mini by about 34 grams or so. All right, you made me do it. Let's weigh it against the Odin 2 Portal. There, we finally found one that's heavier than it. So the Odin 2 Portal is significantly heavier by about 50 grams than the RG Slide. I'm wondering if on the setup here, we're actually going to go through the actual setup process. On the web when I set that one up, it went straight in, had all the apps already downloaded that I didn't want. I don't really like using Anbernic's apps. So we're loading this up. We're going to find out if the same thing happens here. Nope, so now we're actually getting the start screen. Actually, you know what? I might have got just this screen last time. Put on some Wi-Fi. Okay. Set your system time and date. Okay, we can do that. And now it's going to do the config. So I don't know that it did this last time. I can't remember. We're going to find out. So it seemed really odd to me because there used to be this setup screen you had to go through on Anbernic devices. And it seemed to me like it skipped it and it just went straight into, it already installed all the apps for me, even though I typically ask it not to, because I kind of know what emulators and things I want to use. And I am working on a list of those too. I will have it up on my website eventually, but I am trying to go through and figure out exactly which emulators and settings and things that I use. So it is a resource that I'm trying to make for you guys. I don't know why I've never done it. I posted on my community page before, but not the full list. So I'm going to go through and try to give you guys a more comprehensive list of different things that work well and kind of how I set them up. I could go through each emulator and do videos if that's what you guys would like to see. I think a lot of it's pretty self-explanatory if I just write it up for you, but there are some that are a little bit confusing. So if there is some that you guys want to see, we can definitely do that. And while we wait for this, I guess we'll just see what happens here. There we go. Oh, it did it again. See, this is what it... So they used to go through this menu system to set these up, and I guarantee you when I go over a page here, it's going to have every emulator installed, and I have to go through and uninstall them all individually. So I have most of these paid for myself, mostly because I like to support the creators. So all these premium emulators that they're giving us for free, which are older versions, and also I set up myself. Now, this is definitely an Anbernic thing. They've been doing this for years, and I don't know why they continue to do this. But yeah, so they have all these things on here that are definitely emulators that they put on here for whatever reason. And again, they're going to be older versions of a lot of these emulators. I'm going to go through real quick, and I'm just going to delete all this crap and put my own emulators on, and we'll go from there. The Anbernic RG Slide might turn out to be the most interesting handheld in the retro community in 2025. It's not the power behind the device so much as the reemergence of the slide form factor. Thanks to an expiring patent from Sony, actually on patent expiration date, the slide went up for pre-sale. Now this is supposed to look kind of like a PSP Go. I'd say the form factor is very similar, other than the fact that it's bigger, obviously, and the sliding mechanism is very similar as well, so I could see why they would want to maybe wait to release this. It does have a very good mechanism here, though, that, I mean, I've done this hundreds, if not thousands of times already on both of these devices, and it's working just fine. So I feel like we're going to be able to use these for years, and I think that they almost had to design them that way because they knew people were going to use these as fidget toys. Totally cool with that. But unlike the PSP, you don't have to have a UMD drive back here. You get active cooling, which is really nice to have because this baby can get warm sometimes. Now, I hadn't wanted to go through all the specs, but you do have to give a little bit of credit to things like this screen on here. Now, this is a 4x3 screen. It says 16:9, which you would have seen on the PSP Go, and it's 1280x960. It's also 120 hertz, which means all you black frame insertion fans out there can use black frame insertion, which is a pretty cool thing to have if you're into that. I'm really not, but if you are into that, it's right there for you. I just don't get it. I can't see it for some reason. So it's just not necessarily a thing for me. All right, so as we get going here, I kind of feel like this device might have been lost in translation a little bit. I think people thought that this was going to be a PSP Go, like size-wise especially. And it's kind of a little divisive like that. It's not at all the size of a PSP Go. And the screen by itself would have given that away, having a 4x3 screen versus 16:9. Except for the screen on here, even if you run a game at 16:9 on this 4x3 screen, is actually bigger than the PSP Go. So you have to understand that the device is considerably bigger as well. Now, that's not a bad thing necessarily. It's just not going to quite be that device. Though I think it's still going to appeal to the PSP Go fan because this sliding mechanism here is pretty much the exact same one that they are using in the PSP Go, which is probably why Anbernic had to wait for the PSP Go's patent expiration date for the sliding mechanism to expire to actually put this up for pre-sale on that same day. My guess is they weren't allowed to sell it prior to that. But I've seen a lot of reviewers walk away from this device without really using it. I've had a lot of people reach out to me like they're not even going to make a video on it, or they just don't get it. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't understand it really at first either. And the reason being is when I received it, I was working on content for the new Retroid Pocket Mini V2. I pulled the slide out of the box and I was like, oh my goodness, what do we have here? I don't even know. It's pretty crazy. So what I did is after I finished up that day, I started carrying it that night. And then for the next 5 days straight, it's the only handheld I carried. So I left every other handheld boxed up, locked up, whatever. And I only used the RG Slide. And though I struggled for the first half day or so, I actually found a really good appreciation for this device. And I think we've kind of nailed down who this device is for and who it's definitely not for. So we're going to go over all that stuff here in the video and help you make the right decisions so you don't see yourself sending this back or you don't miss this opportunity to get this handheld based off of people not really understanding it or using it long enough to give themselves an opportunity to start to like it. Now, it doesn't look it in images, but the Retroid Pocket Mini V2 here is a considerably smaller device than the RG Slide here. I mean, you could tell by screen size dimensions. If you just looked that up, you would notice that it was a much smaller device. But when you look at it in the images, they don't really look that much different in size. In fact, the V2 is going to be wider, right? Not significantly, but slightly. And you can't tell that the RG Slide is taller when it's laying on a table like this, which you would think that this would be taller because of the ergonomics on the back. And there is a lack of ergonomics on the RG Slide, but yet it's taller. Granted, that doesn't account for the joysticks, which do get hooked on your pocket sometimes, pulling it in and out. That's part of what makes this a little bit less pocketable than the actual RG Slide. So even though the slide is thicker, these joysticks can get hooked on your pocket. So just something to think about. The RG Slide kind of eliminates all the problems we have with pocketable devices, minus one, and that's the screen being out. It kind of sucks to have your screen out where it could get broken or anything like that because it is available to the elements, right? And it looks like a cell phone. It actually looks like an old Sidekick, pretty much, or a little bit like the Xperia phone, but it acts like either of those. But your screen is big and it's exposed, and that's why we put the screen cover on. It was really nice of Anbernic to send us that nice acrylic screen cover, so we don't have to worry about damaging the screens on these as much. I mean, you could still damage it, I suppose, but it's likely that it's going to be the screen cover that cracks over doing actual damage to the device. So I think I'm okay with that. The biggest thing though probably being is it's very awkward to hold in some instances, and I think that's why a lot of people gave up on the device. You really do need to hold it a specific way in order for it to be comfortable to play for any amount of time, especially if you're going to use these triggers and bumpers on the back. And this is the direction that I found over the course of a few days where I found it being comfortable. Now, if there's a more comfortable way, I'm not aware of it yet. I'm sure I'll come up with it because I'm continuing to hold this right now. I'm still carrying this with me because there's just so much more that I want to do with this and find out if it can do it. But I also wanted to get you guys kind of something out right away so you could kind of hopefully decide if this is right for you. But the biggest complaint is you do have to hold it kind of differently than other devices in order to play it. Now, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. In fact, I feel like I hold every device differently, but another device I really like that you have to hold differently is the GKD Pixel 2. So this you have to hold differently than you would any of the other vertical handhelds. And so you still are kind of stuck holding this differently, and it does take a while to get used to it and make it comfortable and make it something that you want to use. Now, this is going to be more of a short burst device. You're not going to have to worry about being able to use it for long play sessions, so a little bit of discomfort maybe is going to be okay. But you really can use this. I've used this for hours before, and I have found that if you hold it the way that you find comfortable, it's going to be a great device. But a lot of people will complain because the screen size is so small. So we're eliminating some of those things here with the RG Slide. We have the bigger screen size, and we obviously have multiple ways we could try to hold it to get comfortable. So we're not looking at this tiny screen. So that's just some word of thought. But every handheld that we get, we do have to hold differently than the handheld before it. I also don't particularly like the Retroid Pocket 5 without a hand grip because everything's in the wrong spot. I can't seem to make that comfortable. Not as comfortable as I can make the RG Slide without adding any additional accessories. And I was like, well, it's got to be better than what's going on here. And it really is. If I hold it like this, I am totally fine. You know, you can see my pinkies are down here, kind of resting on there. And I don't feel the imbalance like this. I mean, if it was imbalanced, it'd be tipping over, right? My pinkies aren't actually holding it. It's just there to rest so it doesn't slide. And it actually doesn't feel so top heavy. But it really is how you hold it to make that top heaviness go away, because the device itself is very top heavy. But if you hold it right, you're not going to notice that top heaviness, because right here, it's perfectly balanced. My back fingers are just kind of sitting right here in the middle. So they're not even really, don't need to touch each other, not really overlap. Now they are by the fan, so I will find myself, if I'm playing some heavier games, maybe move my back fingers a little bit back just to keep them away from the fan, and then I'm kind of, more like this. Either way, it's still comfortable. I've sat down and played multiple hours at a time and been able to use it just fine. Now that I'm done rambling about grips and things like that, one thing that I found really interesting about this is I found that I use it for more than just playing games on. So in a normal day, I have an EDC device on me, which is 9 times out of 10 going to be a Trim UI brick. It's just always in my pocket. And then I do have my EDC bag, which will either have like my Lenovo Legion Go or my Steam Deck in it, and then another handheld. Typically, it really depends. But like lately, I've been carrying the Pocket Mini or the Retroid Pocket 5 or the Flip, depending on what kind of content I'm working on that week. I try to carry whatever device I'm working on so I can work out any questions or kinks that you guys have left for me on my channel, the things you couldn't figure out how to do or things you wanted to learn how to do. So I will do those throughout the course of a week or so, and also just so I can play games on them, which doesn't happen very often, but when I get an opportunity, I try to play as much on them as I can. So they actually tend to get used more than my Steam Deck or my Legion Go, whatever other device I'm carrying. Well, this last week, what I did was I just forced myself to only carry the RG Slide. That also left me away from my iPad Pro that I always have with me, which I still had with me, but I don't game on it or anything really. I used to. I don't really anymore. I probably should start again. I use it for editing and the retrospect.gg website and things like that. It's not really a device I use for having fun on so much anymore as I used to, but I do have all my home controls on there. For instance, if my kids lose my Harmony remote, which is almost a daily thing, I can jump on my iPad usually, and I can control the TV and the lights and all that kind of stuff through home control on there. But I found that since I already had this in my pocket all the time, I started doing it on here, and being able to change up all that stuff with the device I had. So there's a lot more use I found. I found myself using this as more, how do I say this? I found myself using this more of an everything device than I did as just a gaming device. Now, gaming on here is fun, and yes, you are using a T820, so there are some questionable things you could say, I guess, with the performance, as far as what today's performance is versus what it was a year ago. I would say that it still does well. Especially, it's a retro handheld. It's doing well. You can do some GameCube, a lot of GameCube really, and you can do some PS2. So I think you're kind of working in the right direction there as far as the emulation portion goes. But also, this is an Android device, so you can use this as an ebook reader if you want. Or you can just do all the other Android-y things. And you can play Android games. I played some Android games on here, which I don't do often. For another video I'm working on, I decided to use this to play some Android games just so I can remember how to play them, and that worked out really well. And I already said using it as an ebook reader, but then for playing games, and then you can watch YouTube videos on here. And while you're watching videos, if you're on my page over here, feel inclined to subscribe or whatever. But, you know, you can do all that right here from the handheld itself, right here from the RG Slide, which is stuff I know I can do on other Android handhelds. I just never do it. And I think that just the fact that the keyboard's hidden on here kind of enticed me into using this as like a little tablet. And I've really found a lot of enjoyment in it. Now, another thing Anbernic did that I'm not a huge fan of is they added their AI to it. I'm not a big fan of this Anbernic AI. I did ask if I should buy an RG Slide over the Retroid Pocket 5, and it told me to buy a Retroid Pocket 5. So they're obviously not gaming the system, so I guess we know that that's kind of a good thing. I just don't really see the purpose of this. It is kind of nice, and I have addressed this in videos before. If you're playing a game that needs to be translated and it's not in RetroArch, this will still translate those. So if you're playing on the standalone apps like PPSSPP or NetherSX2 or Dolphin, you can actually have this go through and do that translation layer for you that you're missing because you're not on RetroArch. So that part's pretty good. There's a little delay there, but it's not bad. Or if you want to look up the books or anything like that for any of these devices, the guides or anything like that, this AI actually works well for that. So there are some benefits. I know AI tends to be pretty resource intensive. You can disable it and turn it off. You just can't get rid of it. It's built into the operating system. So it's just kind of one of those weird things to have there. It just doesn't seem to make much sense in the space that we're in right now. But if you do look at any current gaming models for different publishers, they're investing heavily into AI. So it would make sense maybe for the next year or two as those games become more retro for us to have that AI capability. So it's kind of getting ahead of that curve. So I could see some benefit there maybe going forward. I'm just not seeing it today. But back to, I just started using this as a little tablet device with some extra shortcut keys. Like you have these keys with your bumpers and stuff you can use as some extra shortcut keys, which I found to be fantastic. And again, the ability to do things around my house. I've been able to check YouTube comments on here. I've been going on my Creator Studio and replying to YouTube comments and stuff right here from the device. And it's nice not to have to use that massive iPad that I have to do all this stuff when I can just do it on the go. And I can carry so much less. You know, if I just carry this and I don't carry any other handhelds, I don't have to have an EDC bag or anything like that. I do wear sweatpants a lot, so I do have to make sure they have a drawstring and they're tight because this thing is heavy and it'll pull my pants off. So I'm a skinny dude, but as long as I got my sweatpants tied tight, I will take this with me and I will use it for way more. So this is still going to become or continue to be part of my routine as I make additional content for this. I have a couple other videos I'm already working on for this. They kind of came into fruition as I was creating this particular video. So I kind of been working on them all together. So stay tuned, there'll be more information on this. But I am kind of bummed for the creators that didn't try this out. Now, this isn't going to be the right device for everybody, and we'll talk about that a little bit more after we do some gameplay. But I just kind of wanted to touch on a few different things and different ways you can use this and stuff before I really got into playing some games and then really breaking it down. And then we'll have a little bit more of a conversation here at the end on whether or not this will be the right device for you. So I've been using Console Launcher on here, but I'm wondering if it will actually just do the full install for me and find all my ROMs if I choose the Retroid Launcher. So we're going to do that real quick because I saved this just to see what would happen. Scan for ROM on TF. Let's see what happens. All right, let's take a look. Look at that, I did find everything. Oh, that's so much easier to set up. So I've never actually had that work on an Anbernic before. So I thought I'd try it on this one because it's Android and I know they updated in the last device, but it didn't work for me. And so I was thinking, well, maybe the order that they put on the card was the kicker. And it was. I was wondering why they set the memory card the way that they did, and now I have my answer. So we can go in any of these, and we can look at that box art and everything. And then you can go in and say you want to get rid of Neo Geo. You can get rid of it too. So if you just, and then you go back, it'll be gone. But it did if I went through and found all the games that were on the memory card. Really cool. So if you get this memory card, I got this 256 card from MechDIY. You know, if you're setting up your own front end, if you've ever done it before, it can be kind of a pain in the butt. But this card actually set itself up. This is a plus for the Retroid Launcher. Still not the biggest fan of the Retroid Launcher. I don't know, the way it looks is weird. And like it's kind of monkeying around where you can you got to go in and make changes. So you have to be in the system and then you can go in, you can make changes. It's a little different for doing like game specific stuff. So it can be kind of a pain in the butt. I'm glad it's here. I'm glad that it's something that'll make it easy. So if you're new to Android, you can set it up. There are definitely better launchers out there. just so you know, but it looks to be a valid option now. That's just something we weren't seeing before. So yeah, so that seems to work out pretty well. So no complaints there. So as you can see, this does pretty well with emulation, depending on your settings. And that is something that I'm hoping and probably guessing that we're going to see the community start to create a list for, because we love Google spreadsheets in this community. I'd love to see a Google list. If there's a spreadsheet out there for the T820 already, pretty much going to put you right down the right path, because that is really what you need. And if I remember correctly, there is one for the 556, so you probably should be able to go to that one and see what you can and cannot play if this is something you're interested in picking up. If you want to know beforehand, you should be able to find that RG556 spreadsheet out there with compatibility. I'll see if I have time to find it. If I do, I'll link it down in my thingamabob with the rest of the information on this, along with videos on the other 556 devices that I have reviewed before, just in case you guys are wondering a little bit more about performance. I know I didn't do a ton of gameplay here. The reason being is this video is just getting drawn, and I wanted to make sure I made a point at the beginning about giving it a try if you have the opportunity to give it a try. I honestly was a no-go the second that I pulled it out of the box, and over the course of time, it definitely changed my decision on this. So, is this going to be a device for everybody? Absolutely not. This is not an everybody device, but this is it's kind of a niche device and in a niche category, right? We're kind of a niche community to begin with. And this is just something new. So if you're an early adopter, I already know you're not going to skip this because it is the first sliding device within our hobby. So I don't see you skipping on this. But if you're not an early adapter and you're wondering if this is something you should be getting, is the hinge going to be okay? What about the big screen sticking out? You know, I think that these are all things that you can kind of get over. You know, I think the hinge is going to be fine, but, you know, don't quote me on that because we haven't had it long enough to know how the hinge is going to do. You know, we'll know better in a year from now. But the PSP Go did pretty well, and if this is mostly based off the PSP Go hinge, I think we're probably going to be pretty safe there. As far as the screen sticking out, all these devices have the same problem. It's just this is more prominent because the buttons aren't on the side. So here you actually have less sticking out. So you don't have to worry about buttons getting stuck on your pockets or in your bag when you're slipping it in and out, or even if you're slipping it in and out of a case, you don't have to worry about the buttons getting stuck. So there is going to be some benefit to not having those buttons out and then having this big, beautiful screen right here. But again, we have this with all of our devices. If you look at the Retroid Pocket Mini, you have a massive screen out here, but you also have your buttons to kind of maybe help offset and cover the screen if something were to happen. But then you know, your joysticks will pop off when you slide it in out of your pockets and things like that. We're eliminating a lot of that here. So at the end of the day, I think we might actually have less to worry about with something here like the RG Slide. But that beautiful screen, I'd hate to see it cracked. So it was really nice of Anbernic also to include a screen cover for it. So we already have a layer of protection that's been added. Again, it doesn't guarantee anything, but it definitely is helpful and makes me feel a little bit better about hopefully just breaking that screen cover and not the screen itself. And this is a solid device, man. I mean, this metal back here, I mean, this is the first metal, kind of real solid metal that we've seen in a device other than metal handhelds, obviously, but in a device that has some movement to it. I think that that's pretty cool that they kind of went all out on the mechanism itself. Is this the most comfortable device? It really isn't, but it does take, you know, after some time, you can kind of find a way to make it comfortable. Your fingers will get a little cramped over time. I have found that after an hour or two, your fingers do start to get cramped, but, you know, it takes about an hour or two, and that's more time than I usually have to play on a retro handheld. I know some of you guys use these as your normal gaming handhelds, which is great. I do some of them some of the times, but, you know, if I do, it's usually like the Odin 2 Portal or something like that, where it's a bigger device. I have been using my Retroid Pocket Flip 2 a lot for being an everyday device. Also not the most comfortable device because it's square, and even without a hand grip though, I hold it fairly similarly the same as I do with this. As long as you're balancing it correctly off your fingers, it doesn't seem so top heavy. But that's just based off of these two fingers here, kind of pulling that top heaviness away, right? So your index fingers are kind of there for it to rest on, so it's not flopping, because without them, it's going to be top heavy. You know, it's going to go naturally in a forward position. But as long as you have those there, totally fine, no issues for me there. Not as much fun if you're laying on your back and trying to play above you. It is a heavy handheld, and if you drop them like I do occasionally, I don't want this thing hitting me in the face, but so far I've been pretty lucky on that. So it's definitely something that's going to be personal preference. And hopefully as we get some more reviewers that actually spend some more time with it, we'll get some more in-depth opinions. I know I have a couple more videos that I'm already working on for the RG Slide, so look forward to future content on these anyways. And if anything in my opinion changes, I'll let you know in those videos, but I've been using it exclusively for about a week now, and I have come to really enjoy it. But I definitely was on team send it back when I first got it, so I can understand where other people are coming from, but give it a chance and it'll probably grow on you. I know you don't want to have a handheld that grows on you, but then again, like I pointed out, there's lots of handhelds that we get that just don't, they're not real comfortable to begin with and can cause hand cramping and stuff until we figure out how to hold them. The Pixel 2 here being a good example of that, or even the Mio Mini, not the most comfortable handheld, but you get used to it, and then it's great. It's probably going to be the best-selling handheld of all time, at least until, you know, the Mini V5 comes out. But now I'm just going to chill for just a second. If you decide you do want to get yourself an RG Slide, hit the link to MechDIY down in my thingamabob. They will hook you up. Use code RETROSPECT16, save yourself 16%. If you find another handheld or a different handheld on there while you're looking at the RG Slide, no worries. Get yourself whatever you think is going to be best for you, but use code RETROSPECT16 on any of them, save yourself 16%. Gotta save you guys some money. Come on. Anything you purchase from there does help the channel. MechDIY is one of the biggest supporters of the channel, and we appreciate everything they do for us and in turn do for our community. But that's all I got for today. Don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, share this video with your friends because sharing is caring. It also helps grow the channel, and that is what we're trying to do over here. We're more of growers than showers. And once you're done with all of that, do yourself a favor. One of these videos up on the screen here, YouTube says you're going to like it, and so I'm going to bet on YouTube being right. So take a look at whatever videos that they put up on the screen here for you. It does also go back to the channel. I don't know what they are. They really were chosen by YouTube's algorithms, so go team. But that's all I got for today. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.